Hi, this is John with The Evolving World. Today I'm starting a new series of videos on an EV conversion project of one of my favorite cars that I have in my collection. This is a 1990 Nissan PAO. This is the terracotta color with the white interior. The interior is actually a sage and white. If you look closer at it, it's actually kind of a light green. As you can tell, it's very much a retro style car. It does not look like a 1990 car. It looks like a 1950s or 60s car, which is kind of what makes the car very interesting. It's basically original condition as you see it here. Other than the radio, that's the only thing that's been swapped out of the car. The original radio had a similar shape to that one, but it had more of a matching style. Also, this particular car has the 5-speed manual transmission, which is the preferred. Allow you to extract a little bit more acceleration, a little bit more better fuel economy, and make it a whole lot more fun to drive than the 3-speed automatic. That was the other option. This also has the canvas top. It seems like it might be kind of raggedy or something, but it turns out to be rather quiet when it's closed, very sealed and quiet. So it's actually quite nice. I actually didn't expect it to be as pleasant as it is. One of the things I really enjoy about this car is it's got the cool retro design, it's kind of timeless, and of course one of the things I hate about the car is the fact that it has a 50 horsepower, 1-liter 4-cylinder with 55 foot-pounds of torque, and that's when it was new. This car is far from new, and I was having some serious carburetor problems that was just driving me crazy. Of course, when I bought the car, the intention was to convert it to electric eventually anyway. One of the other things that makes it such an ideal EV conversion project car is the fact that it's such an incredibly lightweight car. And we're going to be maintaining that weight. That's one of the top things that we're going to do here. We're going to be boosting the power dramatically, like maybe double. So instead of 50 horsepower, we want to be closer to 100. I think would be much more better for this car. We want to have a nice super energy efficient powertrain, which is going to be an electric motor. That's the best way to do it. And then, of course, last and most important is we're going to keep this thing looking exactly the way you see it here. You're not going to be able to tell. So consider this to be the before video, and then we'll be doing the after video later on. You won't be able to tell the difference. The only place it's going to look different is going to be underneath the hood, obviously. That's going to look different. Everywhere else, you're not going to tell. Because we're going to be keeping the 5-speed manual, which is going to make for a very interesting 5-speed manual driving electric vehicle. You don't see that very often. This is my second build. I've done another EV conversion project, if you'd like to check it out here. My first build was a 92 Suzuki Cappuccino. It's a successful build. This particular build, we're going to simplify a few things. That one we kind of got in a little bit deeper than we needed to, but this one we're going to keep it a little bit simpler. I'm super excited about this one. We're going to make a lot of improvements that we didn't do on the first car are going to be applied on this one. So we're going to have a lot of fun on this project. I hope you stick around and watch the whole series. I'm super excited about it. I hope you are too. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, now that it's in the shop, we can begin our procedures here. Let me just go over a little bit of the condition of the car before we begin. There's a couple little flaws. We have one little ding right here. Probably can take that out and hammer that out, I think. And we have, it's like the only rust I could see on the entire car was like right here. So I don't know how, it seems to be only on the surface right here. A little piece of it coming off here. But just right there. I mean, it's, there's some rust on the exhaust pipe, but we don't care about that. Wheels in pretty good shape. The whole car is in pretty good shape. Has good finish. It's been well kept. A couple little scratches that seem out of place, but other than that, it seems like right here, for example, got a little scratch right here. But otherwise, it seems like it's in really, really good shape here. Except for this right here, we have a little bit of clear coat right here that's peeling off. I think we should probably be able to lightly sand that down. Since the base coat is still here, I think we could probably just lightly sand the clear coat off and then just put a new clear coat on. I think that will pretty much do it, because the rest of the car's paint is actually really good shape. A little bit of fade right here. It's yeah, I really like this car a lot. It's going to make a great electric car. I mean, we're dealing with a car that has only a 50 horsepower engine, so it's pretty easy to improve upon that. We're going to keep the weight down. Also got some flaws up here. This vinyl top is definitely, it must be original. It's pretty rigid. It's still functional. I don't think it leaks. But it's definitely going to need to be replaced. So we'll be doing a little bit of restoration. But for the most part, it's a pretty nice base car here. It's a good thing to start with. Everything's functional. Looks pretty good. A little bit of scratches right here. It's actually really good shape, actually. A little bit of scratches back here, but yeah, it's pretty good shape. It just needs to be cleaned up. Like, I have not. This is the only car that I've purchased that I've not done anything to it. So like, this is sitting here waiting in the background, just waiting to be done something with it. And so this was one I've not done anything to at all. So we have things like this wear. With the exception of one thing, I did do one thing. I replaced the shocks here on this hatch back here because this was something that was really annoying me. So there we go, right there. So it's nice to get that done. This functions nicely now. That's the one and only fix I've done to it. I tried to fix the carburetor. I was having some issues with the carburetor. And first it was basically all clogged up, and then I took it off and I tried to fix it. I cleaned it up, and then of course I guess I must have lost something, pieces or something that were part of the carburetor or something, because then it was basically just flooding. So first it was not getting any fuel, and then it was getting too much fuel. So but it's funny because I wanted to get it back up and running just so I could drive it a little bit before I do the conversion. But I have driven it from the port back to my home, so that was about a 35-mile drive. That's the only time I've actually driven it. So I've got a little bit of a sense of how it drives. But it would have been nice to drive a little bit further. But with this engine, it was just too many issues with the carburetor. So I decided, okay, well, the basic intention always from the beginning was to convert it to electric anyway. So that was really all the incentive I really needed. I mean, I spent time on the carburetor. I should not even spent that on it because frankly I wasted like a day and a half screwing around with it. But anyway, such is life. So it doesn't really matter because now it just promotes me to do what I should have done all along, and that is to convert it to electric. So that is what we're going to be doing. I want to show you something on the interior here. It's kind of interesting. So this has, one thing about this car is it has the lightest clutch in the world. I've never driven a car that has such a light clutch. This thing is just ridiculous. It's so light. I guess being such a low horsepower car, it just doesn't need a very powerful clutch. So there's just not much spring at all. It's just super light. You could use your pinky here to push it down. That's one thing. So yeah, I want to show you a couple other things too. So hopefully the instrumentation will be able to keep this. It would be nice because I like how this whole looks. You know, I don't want to mess it up or anything. I want to leave it all the way it is. This is the power roof right here. So that's how it operates. It's pretty cool actually. Never had a car with a fabric roof. When I did drive it, it was pretty quiet. So with it closed and everything, you'd think there'd be noise or something, but it's actually pretty nice. It's going to be an enjoyable feature to have, I think. That, and then what else was I going to show you? Oh yeah. So I haven't even bothered to take off the Japanese toll device here. So let me show you what happens when you turn it off. So when you turn the ignition on, this happens. It talks to you in Japanese. It's kind of cool. I think I'll just leave it. I think it adds a little bit of character to the car. So anyway, I think that's about it. Let's go ahead and start our conversion. So we have just a little bit under half a tank of fuel. And it's pretty much stock. Everything is out of the car, but it has the original spare and stuff like that. Everything is, it's operable. other than the carburetor problems that I'm having that prevent it from starting. But other than that, it's operable. We have a similar type battery in place. So what we should be able to do now is go ahead and weigh the car and see how much it weighs and see our weight distribution and all that, because we want to know what those numbers are, because we're going to try to preserve those numbers. That's one of the most crucial points of a conversion, I believe, is to keep that stock weight intact. So anyway, let's go ahead and see how much she weighs. Okay, so I got the car up on the scales. As you can see. And this is what we have. So that's our number. Half a tank of fuel. So if I was to fill the tank, it would be closer to probably just a little over 1,700. But that's our number right now. 1687. A little bit heavier than I thought. I thought it was closer to 1,600, but I mean, you never know until you actually put it on the scale. I guess because this is a canvas top, maybe there's reinforcing up here, you know, steel reinforcing. Usually when there's a sunroof, they do reinforcing. It's a 5-speed manual, not the automatic, so I thought it would have been lighter than the automatic, even though there's more gears, but it's still, usually manuals are simpler than automatics, so usually the automatics are heavier. But anyway, that's our real number. The next step is to go ahead and lift up the car, get it on jack stands as high as you can get it. You will want to loosen the lug nuts first while it's still on the ground. Once that's done, you want to have as much room as possible because we're going to be doing a lot of work underneath there. And then you basically just start taking stuff out. So disconnect the 12-volt battery would be the next step. And then I'm just going to pick something here. So I started with the AC here because that's kind of, the piping is right on top here. So I made sure that it was discharged, which it was mostly. There was a couple drops of oil in it, just like a little bit of oil came out, and then it was fully discharged. So pretty close to fully discharged. I mean, you want to make sure you try to capture that whenever you can. I mean, you definitely want to capture if you have a full system. But most cases, we're dealing with these old cars, usually they're already discharged or pretty close to being fully discharged. So that was the case here. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and just drain all the fluids. We got coolant, we got to drain. We should be able to salvage some of that and put it back in the system if it's clean. And then the oil, and then the manual transmission fluid. Those things are all going to have to come out. So I drained the oil, which is right here. I drained that, put it in there. Got that out. That was pretty easy. So the next thing I was doing is working on the manual transmission, draining that, which is right here. And so I opened it up and expecting it to fill up this container, because this is about a little over a gallon container, and only that much came out of it. As you can see, hardly anything. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I mean, the car shifts correctly, but apparently there's not that much fluid in the transmission. So I looked a little bit closer here, and it looks like we have something weird going on right here. You can see that right there. There's some sort of jerry-rigged plug right there. It looks like there's evidence right there that it's been leaking. So I think what's happened here is we've had some sort of leak or something. So our transmission doesn't have hardly any fluid in it, so that's kind of odd. I suspect that that's the reverse light connection right there, because there's a wire going in there. They must have lost something and tried to work around it or something. I don't know. Kind of strange. The transmission does shift correctly. But we won't need that anyway. I mean, well, we will need the transmission, but we won't need the sensor for the reverse. We're going to have a different method of going into reverse. And so up here, I've started to just kind of remove some stuff, battery tray. I usually just pick something like the air conditioning to just focus on that. So that's what I've been focusing on right here first. Just kind of disconnecting that, just getting it out of the way. The air cleaner on top, you know, stuff like that comes off pretty easily. Anything that we know that we don't need. Just kind of focusing on this side right here. I took off the ignition coil, which was right here. Just tracing some of these AC lines, focusing on that right now. So it turns out on this car, the grill comes off relatively easily. There's only like two screws and then two twist turn connectors right here. You just turn them a quarter turn and they come off, and then 2 screws up above here. And that's all that's holding it in. And then what's resting on, it's resting in here on the metal, but it's not actually screwed in anywhere else than just those 4 locations. So that makes it kind of easy to get to. We'll be able to actually, it's going to be easiest to take that out and then go over here, and I think we'll be able to reach in afterwards over here and get to those connections right there, because we'll be taking all that out as a unit. So to get to that, it'd be easier to take out the condenser first. Also, there's pipes right there going into it, so that'll be easier to get to once that's out of the way. So yeah, just keep on going here. It's interesting, this car, we will be keeping the transaxle, the manual transmission. We will be keeping that. That's essential because it is connected to our axles, so we have to keep that. But we do want to get rid of the engine, obviously. But what's interesting about this is one of the concepts for how we're going to do this is to treat it sort of like a clutch job, because the clutch is attached from the transmission to the engine. So if you were to do a clutch job, for example, the procedure would be is you would have to take off the axles, which do slide out. There's a procedure for that. You basically just remove them at the ball joint here. You knock it off at the ball joint right here, and then you pull out the axles on either side. That's the procedure to separate it from the axles. And then what you do is you simply disconnect everything from the transmission that's connected to the engine. You basically disconnect it from the engine, and then you basically twist it and then remove the transmission entirely, and then you can get in there and put your clutch and your pressure plate and all that stuff slides back in, and then you put it all back together again. That's the concept, but that's if you're doing a clutch job. Now what I've noticed here is that the transmission is mounted directly to the car. So one location right here on the side, and then we have another one right here. You can see that. That's the front mount, and then there's a rear mount right there. And then there's the other engine mount is on this side. So the engine's actually only touching one place directly, and then the rest of it is through the transmission at these other 3 locations. So being the fact that the transmission supported at 3 locations, I mean, ideally we don't want to take the transmission out at all. If we can leave the transmission in, leave the axles in, and just get rid of the stupid engine, that would be a whole lot easier. So I'm going to try something here. I don't know if it's going to work, but it's an interesting concept. I don't know, I've never seen anybody do this, because nobody's ever really, I mean, you know, people do clutch jobs all the time, but they don't do engine removal leaving the transmission in place, because it wouldn't make any sense unless you're doing a conversion. So I think what we might be able to do in this particular case is just take off as much of this engine junk as we can, lighten it up as much as we can, support. Actually, we don't even have to support the transmission because it's already supported. We could probably just simply remove this here, maybe put a little support underneath the engine with a jack, and then basically take this mount off, take all these pulleys off as much as we can. If we have enough clearance, I think we could basically just slide the engine off the transmission and then just drop it. We're coming up on the end of the day here, so this is what we've gotten done. It's some pretty good progress here. Got the carburetor out, got all the AC stuff out, compressor, all the piping, ignition coil, more piping and stuff over here. Got the condenser unit out. So all the AC stuff's out. We also start to spray some of the joints down here. We got some brackets out. We got the alternator out. Start to spray some of the these bolts down here for the exhaust system. Well, we'll go ahead and hit that tomorrow, probably first thing. We got the coolant draining right now, slowly. It's kind of funny where the drain plug is at. It's almost blocked by the bodywork, so I'm letting it drip out slowly so it doesn't hit and splash over the bodywork. You can see right here. So it's kind of an odd location. This should be cleared right here. Then I could let the thing just drain out, but because of that little bit of body work, I'm just letting it drip out slowly. But that's okay. We don't have to get no hurry here. We can get that done tomorrow. And so yeah, that's basically where we're at for day 1 here. Looking pretty good. I think it's coming along pretty nicely. We'll continue tomorrow. We'll go ahead and tear all this
exhaust manifold, exhaust piping, intake, and all this other junk that's up here. Maybe try to take some of this valve cover, some of this upper engine parts out, just to lighten it up, make it a little bit more compact, and then we'll see how much room we got on this side. Hopefully we have enough room that we can just slide this thing out and then drop it down, and that would be great. If we could leave the transmission and the axles in place, that would be awesome. Anyway, that's tomorrow's work, so see you then.